After the debate, or rather the electoral setup in Końskie, Poland, many rubbed their eyes in amazement when the results of the poll appeared. The winner turned out to be Rafał Trzaskowski. However, another poll, which was also conducted after the aforementioned debate, turned out to be devastating for the Civic Platform candidate, whose lead over Karol Nawrocki had shrunk to 8 percentage points.
I
wouldn't worry about the polls. Perhaps some trends expressed in a number of polls have some meaning. Probably the polls will be made more accurate before the elections themselves. Representatives of the Third Republic cartel media were clearly disappointed with Rafał Trzaskowski's stance in Końskie. Nevertheless, they moved decisively to defend the Civic Platform candidate.
Ta debata była najtrudniejsza dla Trzaskowskiego.
This debate was the most difficult for Trzaskowski. Everyone was attacking Trzaskowski. Even his colleagues in the government were attacking him. It is known that everyone is attacking the strongest figure, yes? According to mainstream journalists, Rafał Trzaskowski was the strongest figure on the political chessboard. Although, looking at the course of the debate, he was closer to a pawn who entered the wrong space and then regretted his earlier moves. That is, everyone generally bashed Trzaskowski, even the coalition partners, that is, Szymon Hołownia and Magdalena Beat. TVN24 put Rafał Trzaskowski in the position of a victim of the last debate in Końskie. Well, I guess it's no surprise that he suffered the consequences of his brilliant strategy. It certainly wasn't an easy day. Rafał Trzaskowski was comforted by those who can always find words of encouragement, even in the most difficult moments. Trzaskowski had to take a lot of punches because he is the number one first in the polls, and it is known that the number one candidate is the most attacked. Secondly, he is the most prominent activist of the ruling camp. The media cartel of the Third Republic has found an explanation for his bad disposition. The fault apparently lies with the other candidates, who took part earlier in the debate organized by TV Republika in the market square in Końskie. On the other hand, they were also warmed up. That is, 1 hour of such exchange of opinions made them come in a little better, and Rafał Trzaskowski was just not warmed up. Another presidential candidate, Krzysztof Jakub Stanowski, strongly disagrees with this assessment of the situation. Not warmed up, people can even hear each other. I got up Friday at the crack of dawn, had a long court hearing during which I mangled for almost 2 hours. As I stood in a hurry, even without any warm jacket, I set off for Końskie, which I had not planned at all that day. However, the words that were said on air by the illegal TVP in liquidation are questionable. Well, because who was supposed to threaten the candidate of the Civic Platform when suddenly the whole peloton of plankton, or third rate when it comes to polling results, is hammering away. It's difficult to understand how plankton would threaten a political whale. They want to resuscitate an image corpse and are convinced that their questionable credibility can help Trzaskowski in any way. The problem is that it's the media that needs help today, because on Friday they became part of the election staff and completely stripped themselves of credibility. Although that Rafał Trzaskowski doesn't seem to have won the debate, he has gained a dedicated rescue team. It's hard to say, however, whether this will have the desired effect.
The number of victims of yesterday's Russian attack on the Ukrainian city of Sumy has risen to 34. Nearly 120 people were wounded. This is yet another shelling of civilians over the course of the last few days. Last week, a rocket fell on a playground, killing 9 children on the spot. The Kremlin has been committing similar crimes almost daily since the beginning of ceasefire negotiations. There is growing talk in Washington of a stark overhaul of strategy toward Moscow, whose actions contradict its declarations of readiness for a truce. This harrowing footage was released this afternoon by police in Sumy. Shortly after the attack, officers who were in the area were the first to rush to help. 2 Russian rockets fell on the city center in the middle of the day. Dozens of people were out on the streets. It was Palm Sunday. The weather was sunny and beautiful. These shocking images circulated around the world. At first, the Kremlin denied the attack, then began explaining that it was hitting military targets. The Ukrainian president called the Russians filthy scum, among many other profanities. This was a terrorist attack directed solely against civilians. The same thing happened in Kryvyi Rih. The hostile media reported that it was an airstrike against an imaginary army to justify this horrible attack. This was just one of a series of attacks against civilians in recent days. In Kryvyi Rih, the Russians targeted a restaurant right next to a playground with a ballistic missile. 20 people, including 9 children, were killed on the spot. Ukrainian soldiers were, allegedly, supposed to be having a meeting at the restaurant. However, no one in Moscow cares about such details as civilians, even children. This Friday marked exactly 1 month since Russia rejected the American proposal for a complete and unconditional ceasefire. They are not afraid. That's why they resort to using ballistic missiles. Every night, there are about 100 drone strikes, most of them Shaheds, which attack civilian areas in Ukrainian cities. These mounted Russian attacks on civilians are causing increasing anger and consternation in Washington. Moscow, on the one hand, has been sending signals to the Americans that it is ready for peace negotiations, while on the other hand, it continues its doctrine of bombing civilian populations. For several weeks, the White House has been increasingly vocal about losing patience with the Kremlin.
It's a delay tactic. The president's not interested in that. If this is dragging things out, President Trump's not going to fall into the trap of endless negotiations about negotiations. We won't know soon enough whether or not Russia's serious about peace.
Washington was ready to negotiate and even to convince Kyiv to make concessions. However, it will not agree to being humiliated, and it will be increasingly difficult to justify respectful negotiations while the Russian side is sitting on a ceasefire proposition, all while carrying out these kinds of attacks.
Andrzej Gwiazda, renowned anti-communist activist, turns 90 years old today. A legend in the Solidarity movement during the times of the People's Republic of Poland, co-founder of the Free Trades Unions of the Coast, a staunch enemy of the communists. He organized strikes, fought for Poland's independence and, with his posture, inspired others. We could afford this uprising, and only great things can rouse people to action. Solidarity activist Andrzej Kołodziej met him almost half a century ago in the famous Gdansk shipyard. Andrzej was a sort of guru for me then, a mentor in this opposition activity. He was very concrete, precise, his formulations were very measured. People listened to him when he said there could be no consent to the dictatorial power of the communists, to censorship, to the arrests of any and all opposition. Although he himself was jailed many times, he never let himself be broken. The communists hated him because he was not afraid of them and knew well how to outwit them. We were constantly under surveillance by the security service, arrested, followed, and we assumed 100% that there was a wiretap in Andrzej Gwiazda's apartment. It was there that we often met and agreed on various things, action or leafleting campaigns, and we always sat over tea at the table, talking about something else, and wrote important things on pieces of paper. Andrzej Gwiazda participated in anti-communist protests as early as March 1968 and December 1970. He later worked with the Workers' Defense Committee and co-wrote the demands of the August agreements. He vociferously criticized the Round Table, where the communist government negotiated with the leaders of the Solidarity movement about the end of socialism. He claimed that there could be no agreement on any deals with the communists. After 1989, when communism in Poland fell, a huge part of Solidarity activists sold out the ideals of Solidarity. He remained faithful to them, and that is why I value him so much. Without Andrzej and Joanna Gwiazda, there would be no Solidarity movement, and none of the hope it brought. They remain faithful to those ideals to this day. That is why they look with concern at what the current ruling coalition government has been doing in Poland. Attacks on journalists, on freedom of speech, arrests of opposition politicians bring back the worst memories from Poland's communist days. Tusk is an enemy of Poland and will work with any enemy of Poland and make an alliance. His policy is essentially hostile to the Polish state. Well, and the domination of Germany is also the domination of Russia. Andrzej and Joanna Gwiazda fought against such threats all their lives. They encouraged others to join this fight. Thank you, Andrzej, that you were with us, that you are with us to this day, for being a man of ideals, for being a man of the cause, for being a Polish man. We thank you very, very much. Andrzej Gwiazda believed then, and still believes today, that the beautiful ideas of solidarity will ultimately prevail.
An all-female celebrity crew was launched into space on the New Shepard Blue Origin rocket. Billionaire Jeff Bezos, most known for founding Amazon, is also the founder of his private space technology company, Blue Origin. The six-person crew also included American pop star Katy Perry, television personality Gayle King, journalist and writer Lauren Sanchez, who also happens to be Jeff Bezos' fiancée, a film producer, Carrie Ann Flynn, Aisha Bowie, a former NASA engineer who started her own companies to promote science education, and finally, Amanda Nguyen, a scientist who studied planets around other stars and now advocates for survivors of sexual violence. The crew successfully returned to Earth, making the first all-female spaceflight in more than 60 years. The crew lifted off on a New Shepard rocket from West Texas at 9:31 a.m. Eastern Time and traveled about 66 miles, or 107 kilometers, to the edge of space, where they experienced a brief period of weightlessness before returning to Earth in a flight lasting around 11 minutes. As the women were buckling up for the ride back, Katy Perry broke into song. Despite urging by her crewmates, she resisted singing Roar or her other tunes, and instead chose What a Wonderful World. Blue Origin declined to say how much the flight cost or who paid what. The trip came 2 months before Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice. Bezos opened the capsule's hatch minutes after touchdown, embracing his fiancée, the first one out.
Look at it and you're like, we're all in this together. Like, that's all I could think about is like, we're so connected, more connected than you realize, because you just see right here, you see like, states and all these things that like divide us, but we're not. And
what is your emotion? What makes you emotional?
Joy. Complete and utter joy and gratefulness. Like, it makes me want to come back and just hug everyone and be like, oh my God, we're in this together.
As the crew emerged, Katy Perry and Gayle King kneeled and kissed the ground.
I feel super connected to love. So connected to love. I think this experience has shown me you never know how much love is inside of you, like how much love you have to give, and how loved you are until the day you launch.
Where does this experience rate for you?
This experience is second to being a mom. Yeah, that's it. And that's why it was hard for me to go, because that's all my love right there.
For just a second. It's oddly quiet when you get up there. It's really quiet and peaceful. And you look down at the planet and you think, that's where we came from? And to me, it's such a reminder about how we need to do better, be better. Do better, be better human beings.
Today's flight made history as the latest wave in space tourism, where more of the rich and famous than ever before, or lucky and well-connected, can enter the zero-gravity realm, traditionally dominated by professional astronauts.